lang ng iyong mga mata. Nag-iisip kung paano ba kikita. Ipon mong pera, nasasaid na ba? Kaliwag kanan na rin bang iyong problema? Let's talk, pag-usapan natin ito. Don't walk, may sasabihin ako sa'yo. Sasalveses, iyo ang una. Sasalveses, solve ang problema. Lahat walang imposible. Sasalveses. Ang problema nyo ay pagnegosyo, halika dito. Makinig sa aking payo, ang mithiin sa bayan ng panalangin. At huwag nahiya na lumapit sa akin. Halika na dito sa Salveses. Salveses, iyo ang una. Salveses, solve ang problema. Salveses, don't walk, let's talk. Salveses, let's talk, don't walk, let's talk.
Good evening, everyone. You are watching your crazy Salveses family live tonight from Quezon City. We are going to talk about the hottest issues that will affect your money. And this is Salve Duplito, the financial beshi ng bayan. And joining me as is your financial opa ng bayan, Warren de Guzman. Akyat na dahil miss na kita, partner. Ang tagal na natin hindi nagkikita.
Hello, Salve, and hello to everybody there. We're back. Thanks for joining us tonight, everybody. If this is your first time to join Salve Says, let me tell you that while you probably heard of us because of our TV career, tonight you are definitely going to see another side. Ano ko, partner, di ba?
Ito na nga, pink hair. Wala akong lakas na loob pag ganito sa ANC, no?
Oo nga, baka hindi ka pa payagan na lumabas ng ganyan. Nako, partner, ito. This Saturday night, we're going to give you anti-nosebleed discussions on everything surrounding your kaperahan, but with carefully curated guests and content. Siyempre, Salve and I are financial journalists of many, many years. Huwag natin sabihin kung gaano karami kasi matanda na kami. But we are committed to giving you credible, usable, and non-dugo-ilong discussions.
Di ba? Yan ang promise natin ngayong gabi. At bago ko ituloy ang ating kwentuhan, ay mag-hello muna ako sa mga nandyan sa baba na sobrang na-miss ang show natin. Di ba? Si Ari, si Dayang, nandyan na, si Tito J. Wait! Congratulations and best wishes, Jay! Hey, Kuya Jay! Congratulations! At siya ay bagong sakal.
Yan, grabe naman. Bagong sakal. Ikaw talaga.
Sinakal niya yung misis niya.
Congrats.
Ayan. At si Coach Herbie nandito din. Si Tita Dali, nagkita pa lang kami
Hi.
kanina. Yes, nandito po sila ulit. At ang aking BFF na si Carol Tobia. So, quick shout out lang po yan ngayong araw na to. Obviously, marami akong hinakot para sa ating pagbabalik ngayong gabi. So, please, para sa mga nanonood ngayon, please don't forget to add to your calendar first and last Saturday of the month na po ang ating live shows kasi maraming demand for recorded shows in the middle of the month. So, ang live namin ni Partner Warren ay first Saturday and last Saturday, pero makikita nyo pa rin kami ng middle of the month. Pero recorded na nga lang. Kaya, dapat ilagay nyo na sa calendar nyo para hindi kayo accidentally absent. Kung hindi, magagalit ang ating professor na papasok mamaya bilang isang guest. O, di ba? And para sa mga tita friends ko dyan, you must subscribe to this channel, mga kapatid. Alam nyo na, pag medyo may edad na, hindi nila alam, ay, kailangan pala i-press yung subscribe. Alam mo ba yun, Warren? Ganun.
Alam ko yun. Ikaw talaga, meron akong subscriptions dyan. Grabe ka naman, Salve.
Ayun. So, sinasabi ko sa kanila, pag hindi ka nag-subscribe and nag-follow, makukurot ko kayo. And guys, pakishare na rin po ang ating episode. Clarissa, David, Pasti, Teo, Erica, ayan, Meg, Melia, ang daming bumabalik din. Kasi medyo matagal nga tayong nawala.
Oo nga, tama. Ring, yung alerts dapat, i-click nyo rin yan para alam nyo talaga kung kailan tayo nagla-live at lumalabas yung mga bagong video. Nako, guys, we are joined tonight by the one and only Fritz Ocampo, the Chief Investment Officer of BDO. Fritz, nako, thanks so much for coming back on the show. Hello.
Yes.
Good evening. Good evening, Salve and Warren. Thank you for having me.
Inggit ka sa pink hair ko, no, Fritz?
Actually, ako. Grabe, Salve, nagulat.
Sabihin ko lang sa inyo, meron ako aaminin sa lahat na baka hindi nila alam. Actually, si Fritz is the only CIO in the industry who can give Warren and myself a run for our money when it comes to hosting events. Dahil friends, one time nandun kami sa isang event sa Ateneo, siya talaga ang nagdirektor. O, sabi niya, Salve, ganito dapat siguro. Live discussion yun ha, on stage. Oh, meron siyang alternative career. Yun lang masasabi ko.
Ang ganda.
Handa, di ba?
Oo. Yan nga. Kaya excited ako sa discussion natin tonight with Fritz.
Nako, ako din. Meron akong tanong kaagad. Mahirap kaagad yung tanong ko, Fritz. Ito, ano ang gagawin natin? May Ukraine crisis. What are we gonna do? Yung sa markets, nako, nakita natin bumagsak na yung PSCI, nasa 7.2. Although, we've seen that level naman over the last hindi naman siya ganoon kababa katulad ng ng kasagsagan ng pandemic. Pero tell us, come on. 2 days, 'di ba? Yung market, grabe na yung reaction. What are we gonna do with this, Fritz?
All geopolitical concerns offer an opportunity to buy on dip. Whether it's buying the local stock market or buying global equities, this is a buying window. Look back to Crimea, for those of you who remember what Russia also did to Crimea, hindi naman naging permanent yan no? So I would expect that Russia has their objectives, but it's not to go to war with the United States. Okay, so maybe they would replace the Ukrainian administration. Maybe it's to carve out part of Ukraine. But both the United States and Russia know it is foolish to go to war with each other.
Wala bang danger that this might set a precedent for, kunwari, China or other countries to just occupy another land?
Well, war is always a dangerous activity, no? Because there could be miscalculations that both sides have not thought of. And then suddenly they dig themselves into a deeper hole. So yes, it is dangerous. For the Philippines, it would mean higher oil prices, definitely. On the day itself, sumipa kaagad yung presyo ng langis. No? The so-called Brent crude hit $100. exceeded it for a while. And the Philippines, per study by Nomura, would be the biggest loser because we are a net importer of oil. So, pag tumataas ang presyo ng langis, at alam naman natin dito sa Pilipinas, halos weekly ang adjustment, no? We don't have any oil price stabilization fund anymore. So it's immediate, no? We're one of the few countries that perfectly transmit the price of oil to the consumer. So mararamdaman natin 'yan kaagad.
8 straight weeks nga yung hike sa pump prices Pero may tanong sa sa comments yung about flour, tanong ni Direk Goody. Wheat, 'di ba? Ukraine top 10 yan sa production ng wheat, and in general kasi yung oil talaga it's connected to everything. So we're looking at inflation and higher inflation that really affects yung spending power tayo consumption driven tayo, hindi ba? Is this going to be bad for for consumption related stocks, for example?
That's right, no, Warren. And in particular, when you talk about wheat and flour prices going up, that means yung presyo ng pandesal aakyat.
Iyak na ako.
Diba? At ang mga Pilipino kumakain yan ng pandesal. Bigas ang kinakain natin, kanin. Kaya lang, mahilig tayo sa pandesal. So yan yung mga aakyat, no? Presyo ng langis, cost of transportation, and gaya nga ng sinabi mo, Warren, that's what we call inflation, no? Which is the percentage change of the price of goods and services in the market. Eventually, later on, the price of transporting goods, no? Tataas rin yan. At saka yung pamasahe, no? Tataas rin yan. In January alone, even before Ukraine happened, Dubai crude was already up 14%. Enero pa lang yon. So, mabigat yan mabigat yan. Price of diesel, no, has now touched 60 pesos per liter. And of course, yung mga
Fritz, yun na nga daw ang mas magandang pangregalo sa Valentine's Day. Yung
diba?
full tank, imbis na bouquet ng tubig.
Bigyan mo na lang ng gasolina yung girlfriend mo. Diba?
Mas impressive daw yun.
Oo, mas mahalaga yun.
Oo. I know you have maybe you can show us in your slides yung mga macroeconomic forecast for the year and whether the Ukraine crisis can affect that. Para naman sa mga viewers natin, alam nila what they can expect for the year. But just very quickly, Fritz, yung investors ba ngayon or nung nakita mo nung Huwebes tsaka Biyernes, are they heading for the exits because of the Ukraine crisis or naghihintay lang bumili ulit? Katulad ni Warren dyan, parang naka-ready na yung kanyang
si Direk. Matagal na nag-aabang si Direk
That's a very good question, Salve. As of January, while all global bond and equity markets were negative, it was only the Philippines that was in positive territory, if you recall, no? But nung pumutok na yung gera sa Ukraine, nag-correct kaagad yung local stock market, no? Siyempre, may takot, may pangamba, and entering a long weekend like the Philippines had, no? Or so there would definitely be a tendency to cut positions, no? But actually, when you look at it, as I mentioned earlier, this is a buying window. We just have to be calm, no? It's either you hold or you buy on the dip, no? Maybe you look for a 7% to 10% correction, and then slowly get in. So if we started the year, we ended last year at 7126, no? And we're closing in on that number. As we break 7126, then we would be negative for the year, no? And you might want to look at it sub 7,000 or sub 7,1, and then you slowly accumulate again.
Dami ng question sa baba, Warren. Siguro unahin na natin muna to. Oo, ang dami na unahin muna natin to isa-isa kasi baka Hindi
buti
na
tayo
natin
ng
sila
oras.
mabasa pag tuloy-tuloy
Oo,
tayo. Oo
oo.
nga. So,
Anong,
I'll take, can you take the first question from Aris, partner?
ano sa ba kaya? O yan, question. Index fund ba yung tamang play ngayon na medyo pula? Or although, as you mentioned, hindi pa tayo red for the year, ano, or negative for the year? Or individual stocks ba? Or stock picking ba yung kailangan natin gawin? Maganda yung sinabi mo, 7 to 10% correction. Intayin ba natin yan?
Oo.
It depends who you are, no? If you're a novice, first time investor, no, or you've started accumulating index, then average down on the index, no? If you're a more seasoned investor who has training in stock picking and you can do your own fundamental analysis, you might want to buy the cyclical stocks. Huh? Why? Because before Ukraine, the signals were already there that the number of new COVID cases were going down. The arrival of vaccines into the Philippines has been sustained, and uh, Luzon and NCR in particular have hit herd immunity. And therefore, the signal there is the reopening of the economy. So you might want to buy the banks, property sector, and the conglomerates that own them. The transport sector is another one. Both ICTSI and Cebu Pacific, as you know, global trade eventually will begin to pick up once again, as it did last year, and eventually, you know, global tourism, as many of the countries are starting to open up already.
Parang nadinig kong
Ayun.
sumigaw si Aris Baloran habang sinasagot ni Fritz kasi alam ko meron siya ng ibang mga stocks doon eh. Meron pag isa, I'm looking for, wait, there's a question from Agnes, no? I'm looking for utility
Ayan.
stocks to dip. Should I buy next week or should I wait and see? Grabe. Kayo talaga ha. Taking advantage kayo kay Fritz ha. CIO ng BDO to guys.
Well, utility stocks, no, such as the power sector, would also be another area, especially with the forecast of some power outages during the summer months. Avoid is power, definitely, would be a winner in this area. And both Aboitiz Power and Meralco were among the top 5 best performing stocks for the year. So this pullback for Aboitiz Power below 35 pesos, you know, could be an interesting window. And for Meralco, it kind of became stretched at 360 pesos. So if it pulls back in a meaningful way, definitely those two stocks should be in your radar screen.
Okay, useful tips yun.
Diba?
Useful tips. Ito,
Parang gusto ko
meron si Jay, kunin ko lang partner. Dalawang tanong, isa pagsama ko na, how did previous wars affect the economy? And then, should long-term investors worry? So, siguro baka yung inisip niya yung effect direct to the Philippines.
Magandang tanong yan, no?
Sa market din.
Magandang tanong yan. So what are the previous wars? No? You have the Afghan War, the Gulf War. Hindi ko alam kung yung mga audience mo buhay na noon, no? Gulf War of the 1990s, no?
Grabe ka.
The first one.
Yeah, siguro Afghan War yan.
Dalawa yun.
Noon, no? How did
Yung war sa Top Gun, yung alam ko eh.
Definitely, if the question is how did it affect us, the concern is always the OFW worker. No? If they are in the host country that is being attacked, then the DFA would always focus on, you know, getting them out of the conflict zones, diba? And therefore, the inward remittance into the country becomes a cause of concern. And the longer the war, siyempre, rather than magpadala dito sa pamilya nila, hahawakan nila yung cash nila just in case they have to flee and pay ticket
Cash.
or middlemen, no, in cash. So itatago nila yan. Usually that's the immediate impact on the Philippine economy. And then as I said earlier, yung pagtaas ng presyo ng langis, no, because most of the wars have been centered in the Middle East, or in this case, Russia. So, ang epekto langis pa rin, no? So, even if we don't purchase our oil from Russia, what is important for the Philippines is the price of Dubai crude, which, in general, all kinds of oil and fuels and commodities surged last week.
Right.
Mhm.
You have several slides. I think we want to give you a chance to just maybe look at the context of the market. Meron tayong chart dito on 6 months back. Can you show that? Pull up the chart on the Philippine Stock Exchange. Looking at this, napansin ko, November pala last year, biglang bumagsak na ulit yung market, Fritz, and then it started going up a
Yes.
little bit, and it was little volatile over there. But we were all looking at going up to at least 7,500 na, no, before the Ukraine crisis suddenly started, and then we're looking at pabagsak ulit. Ano ba yung
In December,
pinaka-excitable? Go ahead.
in December, there was net foreign selling once again, no? Probably booking the gains for the year, no? So you continue to see selling, and that's why we ended last year down by 0.25% for the year, no? So when you look at it, this year you have number one, election, national elections. Number two, you have Ukraine. Number three, you have the possibility of a 50 basis point rate hike by the Fed next month, no? March. And therefore, all of these three factors will conspire to make the first quarter very volatile, and we could possibly end in negative territory by end of March, no? So your viewers should have that perspective that for the first quarter, the markets will be volatile because of global and local concerns, and therefore they should not panic because the elections will not continue for the whole year. Number one, di ba? And the Fed usually after the third rate hike, the market already would start to price that in, no? So yung worry or the concern or the jitters will really be on the first two rate hikes, no? To see the pace at which the U.S. Federal Reserve, which is their central bank, will adjust the interest rate cycle.
Okay. Okay, ang daming points talaga, no? And actually, ang daming nangyayari. So much going on that can affect trade. Naku, ang dami rin mga tanong, partner. People are really interested to see what's going on or to take advantage of si Fritz.
Alam ko, Fritz, iyan si Warren, itatanong niyan kung unahan na kita, partner. So,
Ano ba?
yung projection ba ng 8,500 by the end of the year, andyan pa din? Or is the Ukraine crisis going to affect it? Or alam mo naman, wala namang, nobody can foresee it, but we always still watch what
Right.
the experts say.
Our call is on a bottom up, it's 7,800, no? But by the second half of the year, once the Philippine elections is over, once the Fed would have raised interest rates already, close to 1% probably by that time, and hopefully, the Ukraine crisis and, the supply chain bottlenecks that we saw last year would have been addressed, then yes, the market could begin to rise towards the 8,200, 8,500 level. But in the short term, in the first two quarters of the year, it's not on the table. It's not the scenario that we are painting to our clients.
Oo. Siyempre, mahirap naman i-project yung mangyayari in the next couple of months.
But that's already like a 13% return from now.
Yes.
Diba?
Also,
Sarap na yun.
Also, when you look at years wherein the Philippines has national elections, 12 months after May, the market is usually up double-digit level, 12% to as high as 37% over the four national elections, except in 2016. Okay, so if you look at that data it tells you that you should be buying on this dip and not selling. Right?
Oo.
Tama.
Aakyat yung market, Fritz, sa Lunes dahil sa'yo.
Bibili na lahat.
Di ba?
Tapos babagsak ulit, babagsak ulit, mga galit yung mga tao. No?
Why is that? No? Because locally and globally, the market tends to give the new president a honeymoon period. No?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
even kayo sa media, hindi masyadong matindi yung pagbatikos nyo. Bago
That's true.
Bago yung presidente, no?
Yeah.
So you give the new president some leeway, no?
Sweet muna kami.
Sweet muna, holding hands muna. Huwag muna
Holding
away,
hands
di ba?
muna.
So usually ang
Jay,
pinapanood
narinig
dyan,
mo yan, Jay.
Number one, yung economic team, no? Sino ang nasa kabinete? Sino yung nasa economics team, no?
Oo.
Yan muna yung papanoorin in our case in July, August, and September, di ba?
Oo.
And then second is, ano yung priority policies? No? Ano yung ipaglalaban nitong new administration? No? And then the market would start to react from there.
So quickly,
Tama.
Fritz, parang hindi immaterial kung sino na nanalo minsan eh. Diba? The honeymoon period is
Usually
always a
in the
honeymoon
first year.
whoever wins.
Usually in the first year, no? Because both the business community, media, and even the stock market, again, would give that new president some slack, no? It is next year, no? Wherein the budget would be framed by the new administration. Diba? Right now, whoever wins, ang gagastusin na lang nila yung balanse ng 5 trillion national budget. Diba? Kung anong maiwan, yan na lang. Naka-limit na siya doon eh. Diba? But next year, when they craft the new budget, yon, their priorities will be reflected in their budget.
At simula na yung batikos dyan agad. Fritz, you have...
Diba?
Si Warren has been reporting a lot about macroeconomic trends. Yan yung FLAR. He has been saying a lot in the news about this. Huwag kayong ganyan sa comment section. Ano ba? Were all of these things that you said taken into consideration in the next slide kasi you have some macroeconomic numbers forecast for this year? Can we pull up the next slide, please?
Ayan.
Yeah, there
Yes.
you go.
This slide summarizes our views, no? And when you look at it, it's generally positive. A stronger GDP growth from last
Pero
year.
below the government forecast.
Below, yes. We're on the lower range of the government's I think 7 to 9% projection.
7 to 9.
No?
Oh.
Why is that? No? Because we've imputed here the risk of another surge in COVID cases. We believe that we're not out of the woods. Although, when you listen to global and local news, everybody wants to open the economy, open global tourism, and remove the masks. No? But, COVID, as we've all seen, is blind and deaf, no, to what the politicians say. Right?
Di nakikinig.
Hindi siya nakikinig, makulit
Tigas
yan yung
ulo.
COVID. Tigas ulo yan. No? So I believe that's the main risk. And then on inflation, while we're calling for lower inflation on a year-on-year at 3.5%, the risk, of course, is this, no? Persistently high oil prices, which could translate into higher transportation of cost of goods and services. And then when you look at interest rates, globally and locally, it's on the way up. No? We already saw it last year. This year will be the first year wherein both the Federal Reserve and the BSP would be raising rates. And they're going to do that because the economy's trajectory is stronger. Okay? Of course, Governor Ben Jokno says that they will try to delay it. No?
As long as
and they will
possible.
be data-driven. No? They will try to delay it as much as possible in order to ensure that the recovery becomes sustainable. No? That the economy's growth path remains resilient. No? So anong tamaan? Most likely it could be the exchange rate. No? As the Fed raises aggressively and the BSP tries to delay it, yung tatamaan dyan yung depreciation of the Philippine peso.
Mhm.
And that's why we're calling for 53.50.
Oh,
Ah,
it's good.
wow,
That's good naman for
53.
OFWs, no? Good for
Yes,
OFWs, pero
as
masakit sa
Governor
atin.
Ben would say, Fritz, maganda yan sa mga beneficiaries of the OFW remittances, no?
Oh.
And there
So-
are about 50 million, di ba? So,
Pero
beneficiary
tataas
yan.
yung presyo ng oil. Mas lalong
That's also
masakit
good
yung
for
oil.
the exporters, di ba?
That's good.
diba?
The real the real joker card here would be how high oil prices would go, and would it remain high, di ba?
Yeah.
So how do you mitigate that? The U.S. already announced, President Biden already announced, they're going to open and release the reserves. Di ba? Kung mataas yung presyo, kailangan mas madami yung supply, and therefore there would also be pressure on OPEC Plus to increase output, di ba? Para bumaba yung presyo ng langis.
Fritz,
Otherwise, we might go
Go
back to
ahead.
recession again, di ba? And nobody wants that among the global leaders, di ba? So I
No
think
one.
it is to their interest to ensure that the recovery is sustainable rather than open the possibility of another global recession.
Should people put more money in dollar-denominated investments? Looking at all of these numbers.
We've been calling for that over the last 5 years, but in particular over the last 2 years, no, to diversify in favor of US dollar investments.
It's not too late
And
to
then-
come in now. If
No,
you're just
because
coming
if you
in
look at
now.
it, if you look at it, no, the peso is relatively stable year to date. Actually, it even appreciated slightly in January. So while the peso is still relatively stable, and if you believe the outlook that it's headed for 52, in our case 53.50, then that's a deep depreciation of the peso. In the context of, again, aggressive US rate hikes that would naturally strengthen the dollar, and number two, increasing in the imports over exports, which we call a trade deficit, no? And eventually it will result into a current account deficit. Yung current account deficit na yan, no, is what really drives the direction of your exchange rate. No?
Oh, guys,
So,
tatandaan nyo, may konting macroeconomics tayo ngayon. May mga nosebleed dyan. Okay, so very
Aba naman natin
important.
anti-nosebleed.
Oo nga
Okay,
eh.
anti-nosebleed. Let's
Anti-nosebleed.
put it this way. When we're importing, pag nag-i-import tayong bumibili ng langis, ng raw materials, ng capital equipment, ang pangbayad nun, dolyar. No? If we are paying more dollars than we're receiving from the exporters, and in this case, imports are up 35 to 40%. Exports are up 4 to 6%. Yung diferensya na yon, ang tawag doon, deficit, trade deficit. Mas madaming dollars kailangan natin para bayaran yung import bill natin. Yan. Kaya nagwi-weaken yung peso.
Yeah. Buti na lang may OFWs, ano?
Yes.
Imagine,
Buti na lang.
Kung
yan
walang
ang saver
OFWs,
natin.
that's $30 billion.
Karamihan ng nanonood sa atin, Fritz, ngayon.
Pinapadala sa atin. That's $30 billion.
Okay, guys, yun sila Ernest, sila Dayang. Sila yan, nagpapadala ng $30 billion sa Pilipinas.
Yun.
Okay.
Target
We
market
are,
natin.
I know, alam ko, bitin talaga ang 30 minutes, but we promise to give you only 30 minutes of non-nosebleed discussion, pero meron pala ako. Yes, ayan, si Jay Tolentino nagpadala ng $30 billion to the Philippines. Let me just pull up the last slide, because people here are, a lot of the viewers, your viewers, Fritz, tonight, are investors in the Philippine stock market. Some of them are probably investing in your funds in BDO. And Fritz, there are Philippine companies now gearing up for a recovery. We have had a good income earning season, no? Mga 70% increase in income over last year.
Right.
And you're looking at this slide very quickly in less than a minute. Can you explain so that our viewers will know how to invest in the next few days? Quick tips on investments in the next few days.
Quickly, on the left chart, yan yung mga kumita last year, no? So despite the whole market being down 0.25%, kita nyo naman dyan, there were companies that did double digit in terms of gain. And what are these? Number one, digitalization of the Philippine economy. Number two, renewable power. And number three, reopening of the economy through the banks. No? On the right chart, if you believe the story, no, that the Philippine growth could be 6.5, maybe 7 to 7.5, as some houses are saying, then what sectors will benefit? And we believe it's property, banks, and the conglomerates that own them. And in the transport sector, that's really ICTSI and possibly Cebu Pacific down the road.
And you're
Less
seeing
than
this
1
continue.
million.
Good job. Ang
Bugbog pa
galing.
yata sa Cebu Pacific, bugbog pa rin yan. Yung Cebu Pac.
Cebu
Yes,
Pac daw, Fritz.
it
Bugbog pa.
really depends when global tourism will reopen. No? As the
But it's not
WHO
that-
and IATA say, they're looking at 2024.
Yeah.
But many governments want to do it this year, want to at least, ease on the restrictions and allow at least planes to land with, with a few tourists on board. No?
But you want to buy before that happens so that you
Yeah.
get
You
it
want
at
to
a
buy
good price.
before. You cannot buy pag punong-puno na yung mga airports natin. And that's why I say, that this correction could be a welcome opening to buy on that dip. You can do
Alright.
it gradually. Don't do it one time, big time, di ba?
Wag fall agad, guys. Paunti-unti lang.
Full
ang
agad. Dahan-dahan na.
Dahan-dahan lang.
Yeah,
I mean,
powder. Keep the
nobody
powder
knows
dry.
how long the conflict will last, di ba? Sa
Yeah,
totoo
yeah.
lang, we don't know, no? So,
Kaya
padahan-dahan.
paunti-unti lang. Ayan. Alright, thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thanks
Fritz
so much,
Ocampo.
Fritz.
Maraming
Thank
salamat.
you,
Ako,
Samuel.
marami akong
Warren.
natutunan ikaw. Okay, final, before we end the show, ito po para sa mga, parang feeling ko, Fritz, meron dito mga nag-i-invest sa BDO. May nagtanong, down pa daw yung fund niya. Pero alam niyo na guys, when you are investing there, who's the man behind it. That's Fritz Ocampo. He's always on ANC and ABS-CBN also. Dapat mag-TV patrol na to si Fritz eh.
Tama. Oo.
Pero mas mapapadalas po siya na nakuha ko na po ang kanyang matamis na oo, but he will still try if he can make it regularly to our show. Because as you can see, non-nosebleed discussions, medyo minsan tumatagilid tayo ng slide, pero nakaka-recover si Fritz agad, di ba? Pagka sinasabi natin na, okay, current account, baka hindi na natin baka dumugo yung ilong ng mga tao. But thank you so much, Fritz,
Baka
for your
dumugo.
time. Anti-nosebleed po tayo
You're
dito. So
welcome.
guys,
Thank you, everyone.
thank you. Don't forget to share this episode. Alam ko marami dyan, magti-team replay mamaya. Ako magti-team replay. Papanoorin ko ulit. Ikaw, partner.
Oh, of course, for sure, di ba? Sobrang
magno-notes
siksik
na
yung
tayo.
yung comments ni Fritz. A lot of stuff
Right.
there that will help you to stay calm and buy the dips. Grabe, ang daming tips talaga. Okay, thanks so much for joining us, Fritz.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Please don't
Bye-bye.
forget to stay safe and always come back. Share this live and then tell all your friends about all our shows. Maraming salamat. Thanks, Fritz. Thanks, partner. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Keep safe.